Are you stuck? How about unhappy? Join Alena Chapman, author, mentor, and life coach for Magical Moments with Alena as she challenges you to get out of the doldrum and start living your life to the fullest. In just 60 minutes, Alena will help you take control of your life and push you to do the things you never thought you'd do. So get ready to take back your power and celebrate life with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman.
Welcome to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman, and as you know, guys, it is all about that ease and that betterment in our lives. And then when we have that, we start to get into the flow, and when we get into the flow, the magic starts to happen. So the magical nugget I have for you today is that when we start to believe that our life has miracles in it, it changes everything. Because then you start to notice the little miracles that happen in your life. And yeah, they start out as small, and it builds your belief. So that small miracle, of that, a person coming back into your life that you've missed, getting that special little note, getting that break at work, where somebody actually notices your work and really loves what you do. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a gift of a special animal that you haven't seen that comes and visits you. Those kinds of things are all little miracles. So often we get caught in the mundane. And what I mean by that is getting caught up into our own schedules, our own have-tos, our own obligations, our own rituals that we just stay in. The getting up in the morning, having the cereal or whatever we do, and working out a little, going to work, coming home, eating dinner, going to bed, and we actually don't notice the specialness and the magic that's in our lives, the little miracles. And when we do have a little miracle, we just think, oh, isn't that nice? And we don't put any more value to it. And here's what happens. We get what we focus on. So if we're focusing on that routine, that sameness, or the future, always worrying about the future, or always trying to keep ourselves busy, or just living the dream, which I always have to say, and how's that going for you? All these things, when we always focus on that, that's what we're going to see. We're not going to see the little miracles. And anything that happens, we won't see it as a miracle. And that's when the miracles start to go away. And when the miracles start going away, then you truly are living that very mundane, habitual life. And that's when you are not happy. That's when the stuckness starts to come in. Do you see? So start to open yourself up to the magic this week. Little unexpected things, little miracles that come your way. And don't just knock them down as, okay, that's a nice little miracle. No. Get out your gratitude. Show the universe how much you love these little miracles that appear in your life. And guess what? You'll start to get more. That's how it works. That's my magical nugget for today. And, I did an interview with Dr. Fernando. I think you just saw it last week. And if not, look it up. It's all about, he was one of the top doctors who dealt with the first, he was one of the first responders of doctors of disease disorders or infectious diseases in China when it broke out. He's also got one of the most biggest hearts I have seen. He's got a whole organization where he's giving out masks for free to people that need it and groups that need it. And if you have a group that needs masks that don't have masks, contact him, and you'll see that on my page. And you can always ask Wowo, or you can look at Soul Manifesto. And so, but I wanted to say, we were talking how important it is that at this time to have that self-care. And I said it's the perfect time for starting to do something to help ourselves grow. And voila, I have the guest today. And her name is Sade Ashani. And she'll correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
You got it.
I got it. Oh, good. I love it when I get it. So anyway, her bio, I love this. She is an author, a speaker, a coach, and an international philanthropist. Oh, wow. She graduated from Columbia University, which I love. We did the Inevitable You there. Love it, love it, love it. And earned her master's in public health from Tulane University. That's another wonderful one. She interviewed hundreds of women ages 18 to 75 and found an absolute difference between girls who grew up with and without their fathers. That's interesting. She gained a profound understanding of the different ways women are wounded by their fathers and then go on to live as those wounds are their truth. That's scary. Sade wrote a book, and it's called In Search of My Father. And it's about how healing her relationship with her father set her free to experience healthy love. And I can't wait to talk to you about this. Now she coaches women to heal the wounds from their fathers left behind and speaks at colleges and conferences around the country. I love this. Sade, we are going to have one heck of a show because it's big. It's really, I'm not kidding. I actually had a talk with a guy who is an artist who comes over to my house and helps me. He built my bridge. He's doing my patio in this artistic way. He's a carpenter, but he's also an incredible artist. And we always start talking. He's also highly intelligent. And he said, so many women they marry you or they want to be in a relationship with you, and then they want you to be their father. Oh, interesting. Now, okay, well, I want to give a preview. I don't want you to answer that yet because we got to build a little bit more. But I wanted to let you know about that conversation because that's what we're going to be talking about. You don't want to be the girl who's getting a guy and then says, hey, you're in so many words and your actions, you're going to be my father. No guy wants to be your father. That's not what they're looking for. In fact, a lot of times.
Similarly, women are not interested in being their partner's mother.
Right, exactly. I don't want another boy. Thank you very much. So, Sade, let's talk about this. The first thing I want to know is what brought you into this business? Why, what's your story? What was it that brought you into realizing that half the time the injuries that we get from our father affect us in our whole life, not just with the next, but our whole life.
Truly. And all of us are building our adult lives on the blueprints of our childhoods until we come to terms with that and reckon with that belief system that goes in from birth through 10 is kind of like rolling out underneath our adult lives. And then we build on top of that. So how I came to realize that that's what I and anyone else who has gone through significant childhood trauma is doing. As my father said that he was going on a business trip when I was 13 years old. He said that he was going to be gone for 6 months. He dragged that on for 12 years until his death, and I never spent longer than 2 weeks at a time with him again.
Oh, wow.
So it was very disorienting, but what started out as why did he go very quickly became why what.
Hold on for 1 minute, please. Kayla, we had a little bit of noise, so I cut it out. We're going to back it up where she starts talking about her father's trips.
Okay. So when I was 13 years old, my father said that he was going to go on a business trip for 6 months. And he dragged that on for 12 years until his death. And I never spent longer than 2 weeks at a time with him again.
Wow.
So it was very disorienting. And what started out as why did he go very quickly became why wasn't I good enough for him to stay? And
that's
I got my first boyfriend within a few weeks of his departure. And I learned that that was not a coincidence later on. So I really dived into this work. I'd say around 19, the researcher that I was coming online. And I was a freshman at Columbia, and I was surrounded by these brilliant, beautiful, talented young women, my dear close friends. So I gathered us into my dorm room and thought, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Why are we all dating jerks? And I went around the room to try and figure out what we all had in common. And sure enough, Dad was absent, abusive, neglectful, inconsistent, unfaithful to Mom. And this light bulb went off. Like, that's it. This is why we are trying to reconcile this pain. Going out there into the world, essentially dating some version of Dad to try and get the storyline right this time.
Yes.
You be Dad, I'll be me. And this time you won't hurt me. You won't cheat on me. You'll stay sober. I'll love you so much. I heal you. We want to reconcile that original storyline.
Yeah.
So what many of us are experiencing as chemistry or lust or attraction is actually that we can sense there is some friction, some chaos here, something to heal, fix. Yeah. And that's really where it began for me.
Isn't that interesting? And so then what happens is, because you cannot fix another person, they have to want to fix themselves, as you know. So then you end up in turmoil with that person. You move on to the next. You live the same thing over and over until you come to the realization that they aren't your father, and you cannot reconcile that through another person. Yeah, that's big. And for those of us out in this, it's your first chakra. It's starting, you're trying to heal all the stuff in your very first chakra, which is all your home, how you relate to the world. And that's very interesting. So, all right. So you did this research, you got into it. Where did it lead you? Because I know you did you didn't just do the girls that you knew. Then you started getting out into the world and asking. And if I'm not mistaken, and I wouldn't assume either, that you probably found a really big gap between women who had really strong father relationships and those that didn't you? And what were those differences?
Absolutely. So when I was doing this research, I around like halfway through the 3-year period, I began to be able to tell them on sight. Like, really? when a woman walked through the door, I'd be like, she had a dad. He went to her ballet recitals. I can tell by the way she carries herself, by the way she holds her shoulders back. I knew she had a dad.
So, and it's that stance. It comes off as confidence then, doesn't it?
Confidence. There's a centeredness within the being. There is a righteousness, a worthiness that she holds, that she is worthy to be protected, that there is nothing that could happen here between she and I and, any of my other partners that would hurt her.
Wow.
And that she would not be defended for.
Wow.
There was a lumpy old pillow that I would ask people to sit on when I was doing the interviews.
Smart girl. Oh my God.
And women who had fathers, had healthy relationships with them, they would pull the thing out and set it aside or say this, this thing is really uncomfortable. You shouldn't ask people to sit on it, make mention of it or just move it away. And I noticed that women who did not have fathers, or they were, abusive or really neglectful, emotionally unavailable, they would just kind of like rotate themselves around.
Uncomfortable.
Sit on this thing
but not say anything because they don't want to offend you and they don't want to cause ripples. And so they're going to sit there and just be miserable and move around. Isn't that interesting?
So this, silly little pillow that I had not considered a part of my work at all suddenly became the focal point of this research. Was like, let's see what she's going to do with the pillow. Now, was really excited about, like, how is this going to translate? And, of course, the metaphor just comes barreling through. Like, so many of us who have experienced pain in our childhoods are letting life happen to us. And can we give ourselves permission to manifest what we desire, to even speak, this hurts, I want something different than this, I want better for myself than this. Yeah. I don't have to be in pain. I can move the world around me to suit myself. And so it became this like mission. I felt like this true soul calling to come forward and remind children of God, the universe, however we want to refer to that power that is bigger than us, that we have the right, the birthright to speak that which we desire into fruition.
Yeah.
It's ours for the taking. And if this hurts and this is uncomfortable and this situation doesn't work for you, you get to say that out loud. And you get to move the world around you to make yourself happy.
That's right. And that's exactly what it's about. And yet we don't. It's funny. I don't know. I was just talking to someone. A lot of women can't even, they judge themselves so hard that they can't even get out a coherent thought. You know what I mean? We have gotten to the point where we have so many women that are so damaged from, guess maybe it's the fathers, whatever it is, but they're so damaged. And I see it in the age groups of the 40s and 50s. Isn't that interesting? The 40s and 50s, even the beginning of 60s, that big giant age group. Now you're younger than I am, so you're probably seeing it younger, but that's where I'm seeing a big giant. There's a lot of women that let people abuse them. They're passive aggressive. They're they can't make a decision, or when they do make a decision, it's done with excuses. I'm just pointing out all these things that I have seen. And it's very interesting to me that in all this time, we haven't gained the self-awareness that we need to start with ourselves, and that we might be slightly, I don't want to say damaged, but we might not be in our own benefit right at the moment because we have been influenced so strongly to act one way, and it's not real. Very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. This is about the reclamation of our power, the reclamation of our voice. Where I began my career was with, one little tattered copy of my book under my arm and heading out to sorority houses to speak for free because I wanted to tell as many women as I could. Just because we have experienced pain in our childhoods doesn't mean that we have to spend the rest of our lives replaying this story. We can have something else.
I know. And okay, so when we have this and you see this vast difference, then we really got to start talking about how do we get that sureness back, that belief in ourselves, the stuff that has been taken away from us. How do we get it back? Because it is our right. I mean, for all the listeners out there, guys, you are in the image of God. And if you really think about it, because we all look different, we're all different sex, we have women and men, we have all sorts of, differences, but it's the inside. We are all from the very same place. We are all in the image of God or force or source, whatever you believe, but we are from one place and it's all split. And yet we put ourselves into the spot that we're not worthy. And it's just not true. So if we are, I think I want to back up. And then after the break, I want to talk about more of what we can do. But I want to focus in a little bit more. There's another question. All right, so we see women who are confident. We see, we call them bossy, we call them demanding, we call them high, what's the other thing they call them? High maintenance. God, I was called that in college. And I said, what are you talking about? All right. So anyway, all these things, but really it's a woman who knows her worth. It's a woman who understands that she is in the image of God and that she has every right to go after what she wants, to be who she wants, to be with who she wants. All right. And we talked a little bit about the woman who did not grow up with this advantage of realizing her full potential. She, of course, is going to try to fix men. We always have those fixers out there. You can't fix anybody but yourself. But what else does it do? How else does it hurt her? Like when she tries to be a doctor, or when she, something in her life, when she's trying to do her own life, not even to mention a relationship, but her own life. How does it play out then?
Sure. So when I was doing my research and I interviewed just over 300 women, I found 6 father wound responses. So the father wound response archetypes is what I call them. So the first one is the CEO. She shows up very alpha. She's what people would refer to as bossy, demanding. She's very focused on her career. The resume can be this glowing thing where she decides that this is the place where she's going to derive her worthiness from. So the career is where she pours so much of herself, and she's great at it. She pushes hard. She has very little time for the other aspects of herself, and they remain more underdeveloped because she has chosen to pursue. My clients have been clinical psychologists, neurosurgeons. There's only 200 or so female neurosurgeons in the country to push that hard in your career, looking for that acknowledgement.
It's different. You'll see women who go into that career and they're doing it because they either want to make a difference in the world, or they're doing it for some kind of cause, or because they have just an interest, a fascination. That's different. And really that's different than what you're talking about, which is going into it to prove I'm worthy and to get the acknowledgement. What is it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's like, what's your why? Why do you want to do this?
Why do you want to do it? And that is what's going to make the difference. You can achieve just as much, but not in a way that you're totally obsessed with it and engulfed with it. Yeah, very interesting. And it is. I do come across women who you just know do not feel that worthiness within themselves. And it's one time I had a woman in one of my workshops, and I made the mistake of saying that I saw a gentleness in her. And oh my gosh, she nearly bit my head off. That she could not have that gentleness in her. She was not gentle. That was that. And she went to the greatest ends of the earth to show how tough she was. And isn't that interesting? And yeah, by the end of the workshop, she was happy to wear that. She had come to a realization. But when I first did that to her, my God, it was like I had opened a can of worms like you would not believe. And it's all because she didn't feel that was part of her, and that had been knocked out of her. And
of course, it brings up all of the safety things. Like when I think about what the story of womankind has been on this planet, has it been safe to be perceived as gentle? And it has only been remotely safe to be a woman for 1 or 2 generations, absolutely maximum.
Maybe.
Like I wouldn't trade places with my grandmother.
No, I wouldn't either.
God bless them. They worked so hard to help us arrive to this place. A mortgage couldn't have been written in my grandmother's name. She had to have my grandfather, co-sign with her.
I know. My mom, she could not buy a car by herself. They called my dad to say, "Hey, you know what? Your wife's trying to buy a car. Do you know that?" Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah.
We've come so far. And in many ways, for me, that resonates within the work, because we've been conditioned to value the love life as a means of survival.
It used to be.
We had to marry
couldn't even own property, couldn't manage property, couldn't do anything without a man. We forget how short history truly is.
Right.
And how this was all, yeah. And we don't understand that, now, they say women are a mess. Well, what happened was we were just thrown out into it. Now all of a sudden we're going to be equal, but we've got all this damage.
Right.
From certain ways we've been living on in history. And and that's why I think we're seeing so many women who now feel damaged. You know what I mean? Right. Or feel like they don't have that confidence, that their first chakra is all messed up. It's all messed up. You're listening to Magical Moments, and we have to take a break. But after this break, we're going to start talking about, hey, how can we get ourselves into a place where no matter what has happened in our life, and no matter how much our dad was there or not there, or good or not good, by the way, that was his problem, not yours. But how can we get back what we are always supposed to have? And that's us, our belief in us. So we're going to be right back. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon.
This is Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, helping you find your ease and betterment. Stay tuned for more of this week's featured interview.
Welcome back to Magical Moments, and I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And let's just get real here. A lot of us don't believe in ourselves, especially women, but men too. But there are a lot of women who they really don't believe in their own decisions. They feel an insecurity they either strive too hard to get recognition, and not because of their own want and desires, but because they need that approval that they didn't have before. These are all signs. These are all signs of, and like we also said, they think life is happening to them instead of them creating it. Now, all these things are signs that, our life, our foundational structure of ourselves isn't quite right. So what wasn't quite right? Well, a lot of times, guess what? According to Sade, it's because of our fathers, our relationship with our fathers. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. So let's talk a little bit more. And I wanted to bring up, before we started bringing up some of the ways that we could build this, to fix that first chakra, or our relationship with our foundation of ourself, the I becoming the we. What is the we? Who are we in the we? One thing that I do see, I think it is the father, but I also think it's a lot of damage that goes way, way, way back. And this is money, our belief on money, which is a problem everywhere. But I really, even that, I'm thinking back into my own family. It was money was such a weird thing. Dad worked really, really hard. He was a self-made man, worked himself up that way. I was a daddy's girl more than a mom's girl. But money was just such a secret. It was such an incredible secret in our house. Even when we had it, it was a secret. But I started looking back in history, and women, first of all, were not allowed to have the money. They were not allowed to know the money. There were lots of women who all of a sudden would find themselves a widow, and you see it in all movies and books and everything, and all of a sudden they find out that the money was squandered, or the money was, given to somebody else, and they were supposed to marry that person, and oh my gosh, just the messes that were created. So if we leave it to the women to have a straight venue on how to treat the money, well, we didn't have a clear path. But the men also have a funny. Tell me what happens with that. Why do we still have our money issues? Why are we always, most people have that as their major block. Why? Why?
Sure. A lot of us have stories, wrapped up in this. But besides the ancestral trauma of womanhood, I think one of the exercises that really helped me get clear on this was to write out all of my money memories from the very beginning, from the first time I even understood what money was. Like somewhere around age 3, I have this memory of like grandma smacking my hand and saying, "Don't put that in your mouth, money's dirty." All the way, through life. Chris stole my pocketbook money in the 3rd grade. Sitting down to purchase my first car, and I didn't know anything about anything, and they ran my credit and said, "You have none. We can't sell you a car." And I felt so ashamed and embarrassed to have gone through all of this. And I thought, here I am with my down payment. I'm ready to buy my car, and to that first like onslaught sensation of like, okay, you've graduated college, here's your student loans. And it was just like, oh, what did I sign? What did I do? I didn't know what I did. I just thought I was signing this thing that everybody else signs, and didn't know what I was doing.
No.
And what I realized was like that these money memories make up our money story. This is our experience with money. And, I started looking for recurring characters and emotional themes. And it seemed that men and money in my money story were always attached with this bitterness and resentment. There was anxiety whenever mom came into the story. I was nervous, and, there was shame whenever it seemed to just really be attached with just me interacting in my money story. So it was like, okay, this is my list of who, I can get ready to forgive. I don't believe in forcing forgiveness. If we're not there yet, that's okay.
Right.
But just to acknowledge that's there and is in the way for us. So when we're ready to forgive, I used to write down like, I'm thinking about getting ready to maybe forgive my dad. We can take our time. We can be where
you have to take your time. It's an evolution.
We can be where we are.
An evolution. Yeah. But
letting it be a story of becoming.
And becoming. But it is a process of understanding. I always say, if you can name it, then you can begin to tame it. And if that money story, then you can start to see, if you have that shame, of course you do, because it was brought into you, and money was never really taught. And even in my world, it wasn't, and it was very much just a very weird vibe. I had to also deal with that, especially when I got divorced and I'm on my own. All of a sudden 3 kids, and oh my gosh, how do I get this really going? You get a job, but that's not really getting it going, folks. That's just getting a job. It's managing the money. It's making the money grow. It's feeling comfortable with the money. And lots of us do get extremely nervous with the money. And I do think it comes from, again, that first chakra, our relationship with money, and our first how we were taught to deal with it. And I love, Sade, I love your exercise. And if we could all just write out what, all of our experiences with money, oh my gosh, what an eye-opening experience that is right there. Yeah. And then you can change it.
Yeah. That's the next step.
How did you change it?
So I started at the top of this list and crossed out every memory and said, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And wrote down any of the lessons that I had learned from it. Like what is the gift? What is the gold of this? When Chris stole my pocketbook money in the 3rd grade, I learned not to leave, my bag unattended.
Right, right.
When I walked out of that car dealership, I, got online and started Googling about how to build my credit. I started to learn. That was, the gift of those experiences was what actually formed the foundation of my new money story. And then I wrote out what I wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
And so I wrote out my new dream, my new vision for my life, and how I was going to interact with money, what my business was going to be like, how many clients I was going to serve a month, and how good it was going to feel to live in that new way. And then, a little untraditional. On the other side, I wrote down all of my fears, all of the reasons why I thought I was going to mess that up and blow it up. When we sort of dive in deep in the law of attraction and things like this, I think one of the places where we misstep with that is we disconnect ourselves from being allowed to feel our feelings.
Yes. That's so true.
It was like little Sade, my inner child waking up in the middle of the night saying, I'm scared, I'm nervous, there's a monster under the bed. And it's like, as an adult, there's no monster under the bed. Right. But are you going to slam the door and say be quiet, there's no monster under the bed, go back to sleep? Or do you open the door and hold that inner child and say, it's okay, I'm here with you? So it was like letting her get it all out. I'm scared I'm going to mess it all up. Even, some of the things that sound ridiculous, like the IRS will come after me and I'll go to jail, and, whatever, just letting it all come out so you can see it. Otherwise,
I think
it's the subconscious.
You gotta see it. Well, James Allen in As a Man Thinketh, he says, he doesn't say whatever be it in your mind is your reality. He says whatever is in your heart. So you can say, you can mask that, but you really have to deal with the true belief. Because if you don't deal with the true belief, it'll start sabotaging you in all sorts of ways, because it's in your heart, meaning it is in that subconscious mind. And yes, you can do the affirmations. I do believe in the law of attraction, but I also believe that it's what's in your heart, and you have to deal with that. And then, oh my gosh, then you watch it really work. But meanwhile, you're sabotaging yourself up to wazoo if you don't.
If we don't have clarity on what we are afraid of, which is, really the primitive mind, that fear space, then we're bumping up against it like, walking through the living room in the dark, bumping up against our subconscious beliefs. But when we, are brave enough and ready enough, and I do really want to commend us when we do this work and we get clear on those childhood fears. This is an act of bravery. It takes courage.
It does take a lot of courage. It does. Yeah.
Yeah. That then we can see it. Then it's like, oh, there's the fear that I've been crashing up against all this time, that I feel like I have to work hard in order to be lovable, that money is the root of all evil and men can't be trusted. Well, of course, this is my adult life then.
Yes, of course.
That's what we've been working with.
And you don't know, you have to accept where you are first before you can move forward, because that's going to guide where you want to go. And it's very true. You did it right. And yes, it is true. And I think the exercises I did, because I had a money thing too. Of course I did. My parents were just like that. I think we all do. And mine was that I wasn't able to handle it. Now that's mine. And it wasn't even that money was evil. It was me. I couldn't handle it. And so I had to say, now, why couldn't I handle it? It's funny when we write out our fears or we have someone say our fears to us, they sound so ridiculous. Did you find that too? Yeah, they sound so silly. How can me, out of no one else in the whole wide world, all these other people, and I can't handle it, but yet everybody else can? Does that even make sense? Does that really make sense? No. And yet that's what was haunting me in my world. And so I had to then counteract that with my actions, with my true beliefs, what I wanted to believe and what I wanted to build with my money relationship. And but I had to realize that. Because otherwise I just think, oh, I have a lack. But I didn't have a lack. I had a disbelief in my own ability That's different, which was brought on by my parents. It really was. And my grandparents. And probably their grandparents. I have a feeling it did not stop.
Right.
But
Right.
you have to, yeah, I love this. And by the way, I always say you have to write out your fears. Really, our fears are silly. They really don't make any sense. But boy,
Well, yeah, it's that metaphor, right? It's the child who feels like there's a monster under the bed, and like, can we listen while they tell us, the monster has purple fur and green fingernails, and like we as the adult know it's ridiculous. Of course, the IRS isn't going to put me in jail.
yeah.
But
Right.
it's in there. And part of when these fears show up are in that birth through 10 space where we are more open to magic and wonder and that childlike playfulness. And that's where they come from. They do sound like a child.
They do.
When we get it all out.
When you really open up to it, they sound like a child. And when you do that, then you think, oh my gosh, I don't have to let this be. I can change this. And that's when you get to your realization. And that's when you will make the biggest strides. You have to come to the awareness to be able and recognize it, to be able to really move like in quantum leaps. And
I think one of the things that really supported me in healing was reparenting myself.
I love that. Now explain that.
Sure, I'd love to. Children are biologically hardwired to seek their parents' approval. We need those people to like us so they'll feed us and keep us alive. So we learn to read them and figure out what they want and need from us, especially those of us who grew up in very, patriarchal influenced homes culturally. Children, can be seen and not heard. And, we can engage in exchanging attention and affection for good grades, good behavior, and not learn, that we're not sure even how to receive unconditional love if we never have. So at a certain point, I realized that I had created a version of myself to appease my parents, and that I wasn't really sure if that was the real Sade. That this was some sort of like Showtime performance Sade who, was going to get the good grades and get the good job and, make her parents proud, come home with the trophies. Yeah. And I realized that I wanted to spend time getting to know who I really was. I hear this so much in my clients that it was like when it was time to, decorate their rooms or make themselves a meal they really enjoyed, that they didn't actually know what their favorite color was, how to play. If the homework assignment was play and have fun, they're like, I don't know how to do that. I've been a grown woman since I was 9 years old. This kind of stuff coming through.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
So reparenting exercise for me began with a baby doll. And I really resented this exercise. My coach had me do it. And she asked me to take care of a doll like it was a baby every night before bed. Luckily, I didn't have to take her around town. Hallelujah. That I had to give her a bath and sing to her and whatever else. So it's like day 3 of this week-long assignment, and I am just falling apart, right? Like I hate this thing. I don't want to do it. I'm gritting my teeth through it. Just like, this is so stupid. I'm calling this lady and telling her I don't want to do this anymore. And so I'm like running the bath for her. I've like tossed the baby in the bathtub behind me, like tapping my foot. If it was a real baby, we'd be in big trouble, right? And then all of a sudden it just like hits me like this bolt of lightning, like, oh my God, this is how I was treated. That it was so heavy and difficult to love me, that it was annoying, and there were other better things to do, and we can't wait for this to be over, and when are you going to go to bed, and like that was the emotion behind the activities that were one day going to become my self-care routine as an adult. And so I like dove into the bathtub, like was holding this baby doll, like, oh, little Sade, I'm so sorry, like you deserve better than this. And I'm going to take really good care of you. And it totally revitalized my relationship with my nightly self-care. Sort of acknowledging that those emotions that show up for us that are like, I don't want to do this, I'm too tired, I'd rather just watch TV, are those authentically our emotions, or is that what was presented to us as children?
Exactly.
And can we give ourselves permission to rewrite the story of our relationship with self-care, our relationship to love, our relationship with money? We absolutely have the power to reclaim, reparent, recreate that which we desire.
Yep, we do. We totally do. I love that exercise. I just adore that exercise. And it's a hard exercise, but it is true. It really does show. That is incredible. I've not ever heard that exercise before. I have to be quite honest. So, but if we understand, gosh, if we get that understanding and then have the understanding that we're worth so much more, yeah, that's real power. I think that people, a lot of us think, well, why in the heck do I have to go through all this? Why can't I just go from where I am right now and start making the money and start living the life and bring, and have, and I think we all want everything. We want a magic pill. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what we don't understand is that it's the inside of us. Waddles said, and many say, but Waddles said, it has to be inside of you before it can come out of you. Steve Jobs says, what I have in my mind, I hold in my hand. And that was the phone, the computer. And he could see that, but it was in his mind. But yet, if you're not taking care of that mind, that body, that person, and giving it the worthiness that it needs to have to feel confident with the imagination it has, then really you can't create what you're really, really capable of creating.
Right. And we've heard it from the celebrities 1,000 times, right? That they arrive at that moment with the gold man statue and they're on the cover of this and they tell us years later, I felt empty and lonely and sad, scared and afraid. It's like, even if we build ourselves up to that point, if we haven't done the inner work,
right, then
it won't feel like anything. We'll be looking for the next gold man statue and stage. And that was my experience too, with the Ivy League degrees and the beauty queen crowns and the cute boyfriend who was abusing me behind closed doors. I was not happy.
No,
I was
you weren't happy.
Skinny and scared and most decorated I had, ever been by the outside world, still called to do the inner work. And I feel like we hear that space come through really loud and clear with the lottery winners, who, end up pulling the Lamborghini into mom's townhouse driveway 2 years later, blew it all.
Yeah, blew it all. Yep. It's very true. I think that, let me put it forward this way. When you build a business, you always see the fly-by-night businesses. Okay. They're the businesses that hit it really, really big, but then you never hear of them. Or the one-night wonders okay. So, or the people who are on Oprah, and then all of a sudden you never hear of them again. All right. So they didn't have a foundation to their business.
Correct.
They did not have a solid foundation. So what's happened? Oh, emails got lost, clients got lost, products never got to the clients. All these mistakes happen because they didn't have a foundation. Well, we are the foundation of our lives. And if we are not in order, then everything that happens to us doesn't seem, we don't see the worthiness of it. We don't see, we do feel alone. We never are satisfied. We're always looking for something outside to validate us. Is that a word? Well, give us value. Let's put it that way. Give us value. I always make up words. We are looking
I love
for, yeah. And we are always looking for something outside of our reach. We're always searching for more. It's more of a lack kind of thing than most lack that we have, because it's never enough. Why? Because we've got a hole inside of us, a humongous hole.
And the sweetest place that we can begin to help ourselves fill that hole is, for me, is to look in the mirror and say, I am enough. I am enough.
That's
that
nice.
it doesn't, there is nothing that can come from outside that will fill up a hole in my heart. Believe me, I tried. I tossed all kinds of things in that black hole to try and fill it up, and found that it could only come from me loving me. If I was going to try and chase the world for acknowledgments, accomplishments, trophies, degrees, men, that I would just be searching for the rest of my life. And that, so for all my perfectionists out there, recovering perfectionist here as well, who feel like, well, that means, that I have to be perfect before I launch. Au contraire, what it means is that if we can come to a place where we genuinely love, value ourselves, see worth looking back at us when we look in the mirror, then we're ready. We're as ready as we're ever going to be.
We're really ready. And that's when we're ready to have like a relationship that is equal, complete, where he's not saying you, what is it? You complete me. Nobody completes you, folks. Nobody except you. And then instead of saying you complete me, oh, no, no, no. Oh my gosh, I have everything in me to be able to explore you. See, all that work you do on yourself allows you that wonderful privilege to be able to look outside of yourself and give people the very best part of you, because you feel worthy of the very best part of you. That's what all this work does. And when you go for that job, it's never because you have to prove it to someone. Instead, it's so much more exciting. It's because already in your mind, in your imagination, you see what you can create in that job. You see it imperfect, and you see how it's going to serve others in the most fabulous way, because you're bringing the very best part of you forward. And the butterflies in the stomach, they subside, because it's replaced with, I know I can do this. I got this. And it's from an authentic foundation. It's a different way of living. It is such a different way of living.
And two wholes come together.
And the two wholes come together. How do people find you, my dear?
SadeAshani.com. That's SadeAshani. I'm also on Instagram.
And for all of you out there, yes, you know what? You owe it to yourself. You really do owe it to yourself, because when you start this journey, I always hear, you know what? I always hear this, that who said this to me first? Gosh, it comes every once in a while, that when we work on ourselves, and it's so selfish, it was probably my mother, that when we work on ourselves, it's so selfish. It's such a selfish thing. But what we don't understand is that in order to bring the greatest gifts to this world and to others, to be able to open our hearts absolutely fully to other people, without judgment, without expectation, we have to do the work. We have to find out, because those simple blocks that are on money or on whatever, the job or the career we choose, but it goes much deeper. It forms distrust in us. It forms a lack of faith. It forms severe judgment. All these things have to be worked through. And when you cut through that, then you are the most giving, loving, achieving, and believing person possible. It's worth the journey.
Absolutely. An open, loving heart is the greatest gift we can offer.
It really is. It really is. So check out Sade's wonderful site. Also check out Soul Manifesto, because it's a wonderful community of all those wonderful people who know the value of this work and what they are really trying to achieve. And check out a 7-day reset, because once you gain that calmness, then guess what? You have that bravery to start dealing with you. And that is on soulmanifesto.com too. It's a 7-day reset to reset your inner calm. It's amazing the realizations that come to you when you are calm and not having that busy, busy mind. As always, hey, love is spirit. And spirit is and only is love.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.